The autumn air was crisp as I pulled into the Hendersons' driveway on Maple Street. Their colonial-style house glowed warmly against the October evening, jack-o'-lanterns lining the front porch steps. I grabbed the bottle of wine from my passenger seat, checking my reflection in the car window one last time. "Sarah, you made it!" Jessica Henderson's voice rang out as she opened the front door, her blonde hair perfectly styled, despite having cooked for 8 people. She pulled me into one of her signature tight hugs. "Wouldn't miss it, Jess, this smells incredible," I said, breathing in the aroma of roasted herbs and garlic that filled their foyer. The dining room buzzed with familiar faces from our neighborhood book club and their spouses. Michael Henderson, Jessica's husband of 12 years, was already holding court near the wine bar he'd set up in the corner. His booming laugh carried across the room as he gestured animatedly, telling some story about his latest business trip to Denver. "Sarah, come settle an argument," called out Tom Bradley, waving me over to where he stood with his wife Linda and the Cohens. "Michael here claims he can grill better steaks than any restaurant in Chicago." I forced a smile, though something about Michael's overly confident demeanor always rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was how he'd interrupt Jessica mid-sentence, or the way his eyes would linger a bit too long on other women when he thought no one was looking. The evening progressed beautifully. Jessica had outdone herself with the maple-glazed salmon and roasted vegetables. The conversation flowed from local school board elections to vacation plans, punctuated by genuine laughter and the clinking of wine glasses. It was nearly 11 p.m. when people began gathering their coats. I'd offered to help Jessica with the dishes, but she insisted I'd done enough by bringing the wine and the homemade apple pie. "Let me at least help you carry some of these serving dishes to the kitchen," I insisted. "Absolutely not. You're a guest, Sarah. Besides, Michael will help me clean up, won't you, honey?" Jessica looked at her husband expectantly. Michael was already reaching for his car keys. "Actually, babe, I promised I'd drop off those client files at the office tonight. Remember? The Peterson merger deadline is tomorrow morning." Jessica's smile faltered for just a moment. "On a Saturday night? Can't it wait until... You know how important this deal is. I'll be back in an hour, tops." He kissed her cheek quickly. "Sarah, could you do me a favor? I left my phone charger in my car. Could you grab it for me? The car's unlocked." I paused, wine glass halfway to my lips. "Your charger?" "Yeah, it's probably on the passenger seat. I need to grab it before I head to the office." Something in his tone seemed off, but I couldn't place what. "Sure, no problem." The night air hit me as I stepped outside, a stark contrast to the warm, wine-tinged atmosphere of the dinner party. Michael's silver BMW was parked in the driveway, and I could see the interior light was on. As I approached the passenger side, I could see his phone charger coiled on the seat, just as he'd said. But as I reached for the charger, my hand brushed against something silky tucked between the seat and the center console. I pulled it out without thinking, and my heart stopped. Black lace panties. Definitely not Jessica's size. She was tall and athletic, while these were clearly for someone much smaller. The fabric was expensive, the kind you'd buy for a special occasion or for someone special. My hands trembled as I stared at the evidence in my palm. The music and laughter from inside the house seemed to fade into background noise. I looked back at the house where Jessica was probably already loading the dishwasher, humming contentedly as she always did after a successful dinner party. I quickly shoved the underwear back where I'd found it, grabbed the charger and walked back toward the house on unsteady legs. At the front door, I paused, my hand on the brass knocker. Through the window I could see Jessica moving around the kitchen, still wearing her apron, still smiling. How do you tell your best friend that her perfect marriage might be a lie? I handed Michael his charger without making eye contact. "Found it right where you said it would be. Thanks, Sarah, you're a lifesaver." His tone was casual, but when I finally looked up, something flickered across his face. "Everything okay? You look a little pale." "Just tired. It's been a long week." The lie came easily, though my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. Jessica appeared from the kitchen, having traded her apron for a cardigan. "Are you sure you don't want some coffee for the road, Sarah? It's decaf." "No, I should really get going. Early morning yoga class." Another lie. I hadn't been to yoga in months. As I drove home through the quiet suburban streets of Elmhurst, my mind raced. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, and every red light gave me more time to think about what I'd discovered. My phone, sitting in the cup holder, seemed to mock me. I had Jessica's number right there. I could call her, tell her everything, but what would I say? "Hey Jess, I found another woman's underwear in your husband's car." It sounded ridiculous, even to me. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe they belonged to a client who'd had a wardrobe malfunction. Maybe Michael was helping someone move and they'd fallen out of a box. Even as I tried to rationalize it, I knew I was grasping at straws. My townhouse felt cold and empty when I finally pulled into my own driveway. I'd lived alone since my divorce 3 years ago, and usually I enjoyed the peace and quiet. Tonight the silence felt suffocating. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone. The smart thing would be to stay out of it. Jessica and Michael's marriage was none of my business. But Jessica wasn't just any neighbor. She'd been my closest friend since I'd moved to the area after my divorce. She'd been there when I cried over my ex-husband's betrayal, had helped me paint my entire house when I needed a fresh start, had celebrated every small victory in my new life. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been exactly where Jessica might be now, the last to know, the one everyone else looked at with pity. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my recent photos, looking for anything from tonight. There were a few group shots from dinner, everyone smiling and relaxed. Jessica had insisted on taking a photo of all the women together in the kitchen. We looked happy, carefree. My thumb hovered over Jessica's contact information. It was nearly midnight now, but she'd probably still be awake, finishing up the dishes or getting ready for bed. She always said she was a night owl, that she did her best thinking after Michael went to sleep. Instead of calling, I opened my camera app and stared at it. I could go back. I could document what I'd found. It would be proof, evidence that I wasn't imagining things or overreacting, but that felt like crossing a line I wasn't sure I was ready to cross. I set the phone down and rubbed my temples. A headache was forming, the kind that comes from too much wine and too much stress. I thought about taking a hot bath, maybe reading a few chapters of the book our club was supposed to discuss next week. But first, I found myself Googling what to do when you know your friend's husband is cheating on my laptop. The search results were a mix of advice columns and forum discussions, most of them boiling down to the same basic advice. Tell your friend, but be prepared for the consequences. One article stood out: Why the Messenger Often Gets Shot, the Psychology of Revealing Infidelity. It talked about how people often blame the person who brings them bad news, even when that person is trying to help. How friendships can be destroyed, not by the cheating itself, but by the revelation of it. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs, but sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those black lace panties, and I heard Jessica's voice saying, "Michael will help me clean up. Won't you, honey?" By morning, I'd made my decision. I was going back to get proof. Sunday morning came too early, bringing with it a grey October sky that matched my mood. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning, as I replayed the evening over and over in my mind. By 7 a.m., I was up, pacing my kitchen with a cup of coffee that had gone cold in my hands. Jessica always went to her Pilates class at 9 a.m. on Sundays. She'd mentioned it during dinner last night. Michael usually played golf with his buddies from work, but given his late night at the office, he might sleep in. I felt sick thinking about what I was planning to do, but I couldn't shake the image of Jessica's trusting smile, the way she defended Michael when he'd made his excuse about the client files. She deserved to know the truth, even if it destroyed her world. At 8:45, I drove slowly past the Henderson house. Jessica's white Honda Pilot was gone, but Michael's BMW was still in the driveway. I parked around the corner and walked back, my heart hammering so hard I was sure the neighbors could hear it. The car was unlocked, just as it had been the night before. I opened the passenger door and immediately saw them. The black lace panties were still wedged between the seat and console, exactly where I'd found them. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and took several photos from different angles. The evidence was clear, undeniable. I took a few more shots of the car's interior for context, making sure the BMW's distinctive dashboard was visible. As I was taking the last photo, I heard a door slam. Michael was walking down his front steps, dressed in his golf clothes, looking like he didn't have a care in the world. Our eyes met across the driveway, and I felt my blood turn to ice. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. I dropped my earring last night. I thought it might have fallen in your car when I got your charger." The lie came out in a rush. Michael walked closer, his golf bag slung over his shoulder. "Find it?" "No, it's not here. Must have lost it somewhere else." I closed the car door and tried to walk past him, but he stepped into my path. "Funny thing about lost earrings," he said, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. "They have a way of turning up in the strangest places." I met his gaze, and in that moment, we both knew. He knew what I'd found, and I knew that he knew. The pretense dropped away like a curtain falling. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Michael's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you think you saw." "Cut the crap, Michael. Those aren't Jessica's." For a long moment, we stood there in the middle of the driveway, two people who'd just crossed into territory neither of us wanted to be in. "Look," Michael said finally, his voice taking on a pleading tone. "It's not what you think. It's complicated. Cheating on your wife is pretty straightforward. Jessica and we've been having problems. She doesn't understand the pressure I'm under at work, the long hours, the travel. She's always on me about spending more time at home, but she doesn't get that I'm doing all of this for her, for us." I stared at him, amazed by his ability to rationalize. "So you're cheating on her for her own good?" "I'm not. It's not like that. Look, what Jessica doesn't know won't hurt her. We're getting through a rough patch, and this thing, it's nothing. It doesn't mean anything. If it doesn't mean anything, then you won't mind if I tell her about it." Michael's face changed, the mask of reasonableness slipping away. "You don't want to do that, Sarah." "Actually, I think I do. Think about what you're doing. You'll destroy her. Is that what you want? To ruin your best friend's life over something that doesn't even matter?" I stepped back, creating distance between us. "The only person ruining her life is you. If you tell her, she'll blame you. You know that, right? She'll hate you for being the one to tell her. She'll think you're jealous that you want to destroy her happiness because you're alone." His words hit their mark, and he saw it in my face. "People shoot the messenger, Sarah. Always have, always will. You tell her this, and you'll lose her forever. Is that worth it? Is destroying your friendship worth proving a point?" I looked at this man who I'd known for 3 years, who'd sat at my dinner table, who'd hugged me goodbye at parties, and I realized I'd never really known him at all. "Yes," I said quietly, "it is." I walked away before he could respond, my phone heavy in my pocket with the weight of the photos I'd taken. Behind me, I heard his car door slam and the engine start with an angry roar. There was no going back now. I sat in my car around the corner from the Henderson house, my hands shaking as I stared at the photos on my phone. The evidence was clear, undeniable. The black lace panties looked even more damning in the harsh light of day, a stark betrayal captured in pixels. Michael's words echoed in my head. People shoot the messenger. But I couldn't let Jessica continue living a lie. She deserved better than a husband who cheated on her and then tried to justify it by blaming work stress and rough patches. I thought about my own marriage, how I'd been the last to know about David's affair, how I'd spent months wondering if people were looking at me with pity, if everyone knew except me. The humiliation had been almost worse than the betrayal itself. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Thanks again for last night. The apple pie was a hit. Michael said he forgot to ask for the recipe. Coffee later this week." The casual normalcy of her message made my chest tight. She was still living in the world where her marriage was solid, where her husband was just a hard-working man who sometimes had to work late. I was about to shatter that world completely. I started typing several responses and deleted them all. How do you ease someone into this kind of news? There was no gentle way to say, "I found evidence that your husband is cheating." Finally, I settled on, "Can you call me when you get home from Pilates? It's important." Her response came back immediately. "Everything okay? You seemed a little off last night. Just need to talk to you about something. It's better to do it over the phone. Now I'm worried. Calling you in 20 minutes. I drove home and paced my living room, rehearsing what I would say. I'd practiced conversations like this in my head before, but now that the moment was here, all my carefully planned words seemed inadequate. The phone rang at exactly 10:30. "Sarah? What's going on? You're scaring me." Jessica's voice was warm and concerned, the way it always was when she thought someone she cared about was in trouble. It made what I had to do that much harder. "Jess, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be difficult to hear." A pause. "Okay, what is it?" I took a deep breath. "Last night, when I went to get Michael's charger from his car, I found something." "Found what?" "Women's underwear. Hidden between the passenger seat and the console." The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought the call might have dropped. "Jess, are you there?" "I'm here." Her voice was different now, smaller. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I have photos." Another long pause. "Photos?" "I went back this morning and took pictures. I wanted to be certain before I said anything." "You went back to my house and took photos in my husband's car?" Her tone was shifting, becoming sharper. This was exactly what Michael had predicted. "I know how it sounds, but I needed proof. I needed to be sure I wasn't imagining things." So you decided to spy on my family. Jessica, I'm trying to help you. I know this is hard to hear, but you need to know what's happening. What's happening is that my best friend is telling me my husband is cheating based on some underwear she found in his car. Did it ever occur to you that there might be an explanation? I felt my heart sinking. What kind of explanation? I don't know. Maybe they fell out of a client's bag, or maybe he was helping move someone, or maybe... She stopped, and I could hear her breathing heavily. I can't believe you're doing this to me. I'm not doing anything to you. I'm trying to protect you. Protect me? By sneaking around my property and taking photos? By assuming the worst about my husband? Jess, please, just look at the photos. Then you can decide what you want to believe. I don't want to see your photos, Sarah. I want you to delete them and forget about this whole thing. My heart was breaking, both for her and for our friendship. I can't do that. Then we have a problem. Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone, feeling like I'd just watched a car accident in slow motion. This wasn't how I'd imagined it would go. I'd thought Jessica would be hurt, maybe angry at Michael, but I hadn't expected her to turn that anger on me. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text message, but it wasn't from Jessica, it was from Michael. Hope you're happy. She's crying her eyes out because of you. I typed back, she's crying because of what you did. His response was immediate. Prove it. I didn't reply. The photos on my phone were proof enough. But as I sat there in my empty living room, I realized that having proof and having someone believe it were two entirely different things. My phone rang again. This time it was Jessica. Send me the photos, she said without preamble. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Are you sure? Send them. Now. I forwarded the images and waited. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Oh my God, she whispered finally. Oh my God, Sarah, I'm so sorry I didn't believe you. And then she started crying. Deep, wrenching sobs that broke my heart all over again. I was at Jessica's house within 20 minutes. She opened the door before I could knock, her face blotchy from crying, her usually perfect hair disheveled. She looked like she'd aged 10 years since I'd seen her the night before. Where is he? I asked, stepping into the foyer. Golf, like every Sunday. Her voice was hollow, distant. Came home, kissed me on the cheek, said he'd be back by 3 for dinner, just like always. The house felt different now, despite looking exactly the same. The photos on the mantel, Jessica and Michael at their wedding, on vacation in Napa, at various dinner parties, seemed to mock us both. How long do you think it's been going on? Jessica asked, sinking onto the couch in their living room. I don't know. I'm sorry, Jess, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. You did the right thing. She laughed bitterly. God, I was such a bitch to you on the phone. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I sat beside her, and she immediately leaned into me, the way she used to when we'd watch movies together during my divorce. What am I going to do? She whispered. What do you want to do? I want to rewind time. I want to go back to last night when I still thought my marriage was solid. She pulled back and looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Did you see signs? Things I missed? I thought about all the little moments that had seemed off. Michael's late nights, his quick dismissals when Jessica tried to involve him in conversations, the way he'd check his phone constantly during dinner parties. Maybe, but nothing concrete, nothing that screamed affair. I keep thinking about all the business trips, all the late nights at the office. Was he with her during those times? Was he lying to my face every single day? You can't torture yourself with those questions, can't I? She stood up abruptly and began pacing. 12 years, Sarah. 12 years of marriage, and I had no idea. What does that say about me? How stupid am I? You're not stupid. You trusted your husband. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. Is it? Because right now, trust feels like the stupidest thing in the world. I watched her pace, remembering my own angry, hurt pacing after I discovered David's affair. The feeling of being betrayed was bad enough, but the feeling of being foolish was somehow worse. Have you thought about confronting him? Jessica stopped pacing. With what? Your photos. He'll just deny it, say you planted them or something. He can't deny what's in his own car. He can try. And then what? We have a screaming match in our living room and I throw him out, and then what? I'm 42 years old, Sarah. I've been married half my adult life. I don't know how to be single. You're stronger than you think. Am I? Because I feel like I'm falling apart. The sound of a car in the driveway made us both freeze. Through the front window, we could see Michael's BMW pulling in. He's early, Jessica said, panic creeping into her voice. Do you want me to leave? She grabbed my arm. "No, stay, please, I can't face him alone." We heard his key in the lock, and then Michael's voice calling out, "Jess, I'm home. Golf got rained out." He appeared in the living room doorway, still in his golf clothes, and stopped short when he saw me. "Sarah, what a surprise." His tone was carefully neutral, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. "Michael," I replied evenly. He looked between Jessica and me, clearly trying to read the situation. Jessica was sitting ramrod straight on the couch, her hands clenched in her lap. "Is everything okay?" he asked, though his question was directed more at me than at his wife. "Actually, no," Jessica said, her voice steadier than I'd expected. "Everything is not okay." Michael's face went very still. "What do you mean?" "I know, Michael. I know about the affair." For a moment, he looked like he might try to deny it. Then his shoulders sagged slightly, and I saw the fight go out of him. "Jess, let me explain." "Explain what? Explain why there's another woman's underwear in your car? Explain why you've been lying to me for God knows how long." "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Jessica stood up, and I could see her anger building. "What is it exactly?" Michael glanced at me again, and I saw anger flicker across his face. "This is between us, Jessica. It's a private matter." "Private? You made it public the moment you decided to cheat on me. Sarah is here because she's my friend and she cares about me, which is more than I can say for you right now. You don't understand the pressure I've been under." "Stop!" Jessica's voice cut through his words like a blade. "Don't you dare try to justify this. Don't you dare make this about work stress or our marriage having problems. This is about you making a choice to betray me." I watched Michael's face cycle through emotions. Anger, guilt, resignation. Finally, he sank into the armchair across from us. "What do you want me to say, Jess? That I'm sorry? Because I am. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. You're sorry I found out, not sorry you did it." He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't," Jessica said simply. "You can't fix this, Michael. You can't unbreak the trust. You can't take back the lies." "So what happens now?" Jessica looked at me, then back at her husband. "Now you pack a bag and leave tonight. We'll figure out the rest later." "Jessica, please, leave, now, before I say something I can't take back." Michael stood slowly, looking older than I'd ever seen him. At the doorway, he turned back. "For what it's worth, she didn't mean anything to me." "That just makes it worse," Jessica replied. After he left, we sat in silence for a long time, listening to him moving around upstairs, packing. When the front door finally closed behind him, Jessica let out a shaky breath. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you heal," I said. "One day at a time." 3 months later, the January snow was falling steadily outside the windows of Café Luna, creating a winter wonderland on the streets of downtown Elmhurst. I watched Jessica stir her latte, noting how much healthier she looked than she had in those first devastating weeks after Michael moved out. "The divorce papers came through yesterday," she said, not looking up from her coffee. "How do you feel?" "Relieved, mostly. Sad, but relieved." She finally met my eyes. "It's official now. I'm single again. And how does that feel?" Jessica smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. Terrifying, but also free. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. We'd been meeting for coffee every week since that awful Sunday in October. At first, Jessica had been consumed with anger and hurt, cycling through all the stages of grief that come with the end of a marriage. She'd discovered that Michael's affair had been going on for 8 months, with a woman from his office named Amanda, 28 years old, recently graduated from Northwestern. Everything Jessica felt she wasn't anymore. "I heard from Linda Bradley that Michael and Amanda are living together now," Jessica said, wrapping her hands around her mug. "How does that make you feel? 3 months ago, that news would have destroyed me. Now, I feel sorry for her. She has no idea what she's gotten herself into." I smiled. "That sounds like progress." "It is progress. Dr. Martinez says I'm doing better than most people do in therapy after a betrayal like this." Jessica had started seeing a therapist 2 weeks after Michael moved out, something she'd resisted at first, but now credited with helping her process everything that had happened. "Speaking of progress," she said, leaning forward conspiratorially, "I have news." "Good news?" "I think so. You know how I've been talking about going back to school, getting my master's in education?" I nodded. Jessica had been a high school English teacher before she'd married Michael, but she'd quit when he got promoted and started making enough money for her to stay home. She'd often talked about missing the classroom. "I applied to DePaul's graduate program, and I got in." "Jess, that's incredible." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. When do you start? Fall semester. I'm scared out of my mind, but I'm also excited. It feels like I'm taking control of my life again. You are. I'm so proud of you. She squeezed my hand back. I couldn't have done any of this without you, you know. When you told me about Michael, I thought you were trying to ruin my life, but you were actually trying to save it. I felt tears prick my eyes. I hated being the one to tell you. I almost didn't. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you cared enough about me to risk our friendship. I never wanted to risk our friendship, but you did. And that's what real friendship looks like, isn't it? Being willing to tell someone the truth even when it hurts. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the snow fall outside the window. The cafe was busy with the lunch crowd, business people grabbing quick meals, students with laptops spread across tables, couples sharing pastries and quiet conversations. "Can I ask you something?" Jessica said. "Of course. Do you ever wonder if you did the right thing? I mean, sometimes I think about what would have happened if you'd never found those panties, if you'd never told me. Maybe Michael and I would have worked through whatever problems we were having. Maybe the affair would have ended on its own." I considered her question carefully. "Do you really believe that?" Jessica was quiet for a long moment. "No. I think he would have kept cheating, kept lying, and I would have kept living in a fantasy. I would have wasted more years of my life with someone who didn't respect me enough to be faithful." "Then you have your answer." "I do," she smiled. "Sarah, I need to ask you something else." "What's that? Will you be my maid of honor?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "What?" Jessica laughed, a real delighted laugh. "Not for another wedding. God, no. I'm nowhere near ready for that. But someday when I'm ready, when I find someone who deserves my trust, will you stand up with me again? Are you saying you want to get married again someday?" "I don't know. Maybe. But if I do, I want to do it right this time. I want to marry someone who chooses me every day, someone who doesn't see faithfulness as a burden but as a privilege. When that day comes, I'll be there." "Good, because I'm going to need someone to make sure the groom isn't hiding any secrets in his car." We both burst out laughing, and I realized that this was what healing looked like. Not the absence of pain, but the ability to find humor and hope in spite of it. "You know what the best part is?" Jessica said, as we prepared to leave the cafe. "What's that?" "I like who I am now better than who I was before. Before I was Jessica Henderson, Michael's wife. Now I'm just Jessica Mitchell, and I'm figuring out what that means. I think it means you're exactly who you're supposed to be." As we hugged goodbye outside the cafe, the snow still falling around us, I thought about the choice I'd made that October night. It had been the right choice, even though it had been painful. Sometimes being a good friend means being willing to deliver bad news. Sometimes it means being willing to be the messenger, even when you know you might get shot. But sometimes, if you're lucky, it means being there to help someone put the pieces back together and build something even better than what came before. Jessica was going to be just fine, better than fine. She was going to be extraordinary.